program today is the first in a series about a little-known but vitally important railroad in western Ohio. What we now know as the Toledo subdivision of CSX Railroad was originally chartered as the Cincinnati and Hamilton Railroad Company by the Ohio legislature on March 2, 1846. The story is told that as part of the legislative process of approving a charter, a state representative from Dayton added his city's name to the title. Thus, the new name of Cincinnati, Hamilton, and Dayton Railroad was adopted on February 8, 1847, by a special act of the Ohio legislature. Cincinnati, Hamilton, and Dayton Railroad was built north from Cincinnati, passing through the industrial Mill Creek Valley and following the valley of the Great Miami River to Hamilton, Ohio. Continuing on near the banks of the Great Miami, the railroad was opened to Dayton on September 20, 1851. Over 1,000 men worked to construct the railroad. This 60-mile line was for the most part to remain the main line of the CH&D Railroad throughout its life. There would be a number of delays during construction. Due to low water levels on the Ohio River, not all the rails could be delivered by steamboat. A cholera epidemic would halt construction for a while. A dispute with the Spring Grove Cemetery over the right-of-way issues would add further delays. The Spring Grove issue would be settled by building a tunnel to give access to cemetery grounds. It's still there today. The CH&D would initially be led by men of vision, determined to improve the commercial interest of western Ohio. This group would lead and control the road until 1882. Lewis Campbell was elected president of the CH&D in 1847. However, Campbell was by most accounts more interested in running for Congress than running a railroad. Campbell was replaced by Stephen S. Lahamadu, who was elected president of the CH&D on July 3, 1848. Lahamadu would remain with the CH&D in this capacity until his retirement in 1870. It was reported that he raised over $1 million to build the railroad from investors in Cincinnati and New York City. Former Ohio Auditor of State John Woods was instrumental in the development of railroads in southwestern Ohio from a financial point of view, also raising substantial funds from both local and East Coast investors. John Woods served as president of the closely aligned Eaton and Hamilton Railroad and the Junction Railroad Company in 1851 and 1852, respectively. Unfortunately, Woods would pass away in July of 1855. Robert M. Shoemaker, an experienced railroad builder, was hired in 1849 to construct the railroad. He had been chief engineer of the Mad River and Lake Erie and the Little Miami Railroads since 1838. Shoemaker would assume leadership of the CH&D in 1877 until local control was lost to the Erie Railroad. By 1853, the CH&D found early success accessing other railroad company lines that were connecting east to west through Ohio to destinations such as Chicago and St. Louis. Thus, the road offered a route to expand trade and travel to those cities. With Southern Railroad soon making connections in Cincinnati, trade in that direction would offer further commercial prospects. During its 70 years of existence, the ever-expanding CH&D would guide the development of southwestern Ohio. Existing communities would grow due to the easy access the CH&D provided to nearby towns, with new communities springing up along the CH&D's right-of-way. By 1914, through acquisition of additional railroads, either by cooperative agreements, long-term lease, or outright purchase, the CH&D would expand its presence all the way west to Springfield, Illinois, St. Louis, Missouri, north to Chicago and Toledo, and southeast to Ironton, Ohio. Among some of the more interesting relationships the CH&D developed was that with the Atlantic and Great Western Railroad. In 1846, the CH&D's tracks from Dayton to Cincinnati were rebuilt to accommodate the Atlantic and Great Western's wider broad-gauge rolling stock, which originated in New York State and terminated in Dayton, Ohio. Various overhead and trackside structures and equipment had to be relocated along the route. The line was relayed with 4 rails, a pair of 4-foot 10-inch gauge rails for the CH&D equipment, within a pair of 6-foot gauge rails. For the CH&D, this was quite an achievement considering the complexities involved at junctions and in yards. Pictured here is the CH&D station at 5th and Bay Miller Street in Cincinnati, where you can see the 6-foot rails laid for the AG&W outside the standard gauge rails for the CH&D. Another example of this dual gauge track is shown in Glendale, Ohio, around the same time. Shown in this photo is engine number 3, one of the CH&D engines used on the inaugural 1851 run from Cincinnati to Hamilton. It is reported that the dual gauge operation with the AG&W did bring significant lease income, some $180,000 per year plus operating expenses, to the CH&D. From Cincinnati west, the AG&W would cooperate traffic on the equally broad-gauged Ohio and Mississippi Railroad to St. Louis, Missouri. Here we see the O&M's broad-gauge locomotive number 118. Eventually, the experiment would end in 1846 with the removal of the broad-gauge tracks. At the time the CH&D was initially surveyed in 1847, Middletown was but a small community. By 1894, though, Middletown had become a substantial town with a robust industrial presence. The placement of the CH&D tracks along the Great Miami River in the community of Madison placed the road at a disadvantage for passenger traffic. The hike from the Madison CH&D depot, Madison, by the way, was also known as West Middletown, which crossed the river to the center of downtown Middletown, was just too much for a weary, suitcase-laden traveler. This prompted the need for a convenient form of transportation to the center of town. Thus, the CH&D would acquire the Middletown and Madison Street Railway, which sported 4 passenger cars, 2 open for summer and 2 closed for winter, drawn by not locomotives, but by horses and mules. The Middletown and Madison rails and bridge to the CH&D in West Middletown were destroyed in the Great Miami River flood of 1913. At left, we see in this photograph what was the CH&D main line, and at right, the remains of the bridge and street railway lines that crossed into Middletown. As a result, the line west from downtown Middletown to the CH&D in West Middletown was abandoned. As originally proposed in the early 1880s, the Louisville, Cincinnati, and Dayton promised tremendous economic benefits to Hamilton and Middletown industries and citizens. Local products would bypass Cincinnati rail yard bottlenecks to reach new markets in the south, southwest, and west. As originally conceived, the LCND was proposed to be a 147-mile rail line from Middletown south to Hamilton. From Hamilton, the line would move southwest through the Indiana cities of Aurora, Rising Sun, Patriot, Madison to Jefferson, which is just across the Ohio River from Louisville, Kentucky. When completed, the LCND didn't start in Dayton, never reached Cincinnati, and came nowhere close to Louisville. 2 names prominent in the LCND were William V. McCracken and John C. Fawcett. McCracken headed the W.V. McCracken Company with offices at 42 Wall Street in New York City. Fawcett was a resident of Louisville, Kentucky. Little was known about either man except that their names appeared as financiers, officers, and managers of proposed and existing railroads in Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, and Kentucky during the 1880s and 1890s. Ownership of the 14-mile-long LCND Railroad was transferred on March 30, 1887, literally the day before operations commenced, to the Cincinnati, Hamilton, and Dayton Railroad. The CH&D paid the princely sum of $400,000 for the rights to operate the now renamed Cincinnati and Dayton Railroad. The original LCND investors pocketed a tidy $122,000 profit for their efforts. The CH&D outright purchased the C&D on July 12, 1895. This transaction was clearly an effort to retain a monopoly on traffic within the Hamilton to Middletown corridor. In order to generate further revenue for the Cincinnati and Dayton Railroad, the CH&D, the now corporate parent of the C&D, acquired Woodsdale Island, located in the Great Miami River, and developed this as an amusement park. This seasonal passenger destination was located next to the C&D tracks and was accessed by a footbridge direct from the small depot constructed for this purpose. The C&D was connected to the CH&D line, which brought passenger traffic from Cincinnati and Dayton direct to the park via the CH&D rails and then on to the C&D. The 1913 Great Miami River flood destroyed the park, and it was never rebuilt due to other pressing needs of the now financially strapped Cincinnati, Hamilton, and Dayton Railroad. Regular service of the C&D ended between 1917 and 1920, and the roadbed fell into a state of disrepair. In December 1934, during the depths of the Depression, the B&O sought approval from the Interstate Commerce Commission to abandon about 5 miles of the C&D from opposite the Butler County Fairgrounds in Hamilton north to Woodsdale. C&D trackage from downtown Hamilton to about 100 yards north of the intersection of Heaton Street, Fair Avenue, and Ohio Route 4 had periodic use into the mid-1970s as an industrial spur, and for circus trains when traveling shows played at the nearby Butler County Fairgrounds. The northern end of the C&D, however, was rebuilt and remains in service as the Middletown connection to the CH&D successor, the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, at New Miami. In June 1927, it was announced that the B&O and the Hamilton Coke and Iron Company would lay track from the latter's coke plant and blast furnaces at Coke Auto. Coke Auto was later renamed to New Miami to the Woodsdale Junction. There it joined a new bridge crossing the Great Miami River and a completely rebuilt C&D roadbed capable of withstanding the increased tonnage of hot metal cars to continue on to the American Rolling Mill Company plant in Middletown. The project, according to newspaper accounts of the time, was estimated to cost over $1 million. That would be $18 million today. CSX now runs on this former B&O trackage. The American Rolling Mill Company would eventually acquire the Hamilton Coke and Iron Company in 1937. The American Rolling Mill Company would later become Armco Steel, then AK Steel, and now is part of the Cleveland Cliffs Steel Organization. An interesting side note, one of the original Lima Hamilton diesel switchers used on this line survives to this day on the Whitewater Valley Railroad in Indiana. As part of the various frauds perpetrated by the management and owners of the CH&D, the railroad was split apart, with the most important and profitable portions becoming the Toledo and Cincinnati Railroad, an operating division of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. The B&O would eventually become part of CSX, with the TNC becoming the Toledo subdivision of CSX. Be sure to come back to this channel for further videos about the Cincinnati, Hamilton, and Dayton Railroad. A companion book to this series, The Wreck of the Cincinnati, Hamilton, and Dayton Railway, a pioneering road undone by greed and fraud, can be purchased from the Cincinnati Railroad Club online bookstore at cincinnati.rrclub.org. The cost is $49.98. We would like to thank those who contributed photographs to this production, including Dan Finfrock, Dave Orsey, the Butler County Historical Society, the Kraut Collection at Midpoint Library in Middletown, Ohio, the Cummins Collection at Lane Public Library in Hamilton, Ohio, and the Dayton, Ohio Public Library.